Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight are Sean and John. How are you, John?
I'm good, Jared. I'm good. I had my little hiatus from the Storms last week and a little bit the week before, but yeah, so all that's recovered from that, and I've definitely avoided any sort of significant damage compared to most. But after the boiler going, the dishwasher, the tap, and then graffiti all across my window, I think I'm quite glad it's all over with now. So glad to be here now.
You get the floaties on and the kerosene lamp and all that sort of stuff going.
Oh yeah, no, I had none of that. Look, thankfully, I'm the first floor, so like I just watched it all come in, and it's still raining now, if you can believe it. But at least it's like draining away and stuff. Yeah, I know it's really mental, but yeah, I've had all the tradies in now, so everything's working again, which is the main thing.
And now I'll ask you, Sean, how is it in Perth? It's looking pretty nice out that back window behind you. So
yeah,
how's things?
I think we've had one day of rain since Christmas. It's been pretty dry, pretty hot. It's actually cooled down a little bit, but it doesn't feel any cooler because the humidity is still pretty high. And my child's swim instructor was COVID positive, so I've been in isolation as a close contact all week. But I still get to go to work, luckily for me. Still get to stick a cotton bud into my brain every morning to prove
that's your brain.
Yeah. So they gave me 7 rat tests and said you still have to come into work every day, but you have to isolate evenings and weekends.
Yeah, because it doesn't pass on during working hours, but if you go to the fish and chip shop, look out.
Yeah. Are we still doing COVID? Is that still a thing?
Over here, this is our first experience over here.
Yeah.
Australia, welcome to the world. That's all I'm gonna say. Like for us, it's like whatever.
Oh, yeah, God, we've not had double figures. This is the first time we've had double figures of people with COVID since 2020.
Well, there we go. Yeah. And now we're getting the whole big China wave again. Something's happening. Something's going on.
Yeah. Anyway, leave the conspiracy theories to when Liam's on next, and we'll crack on from there. So, just if you're listening in and you haven't done so already, just please subscribe to the Celtic Down Under podcast either via your podcast app or you can find us on YouTube. We've seen a bit of growth on that in the last week, so appreciate everyone who's done that previously and in the last week. And if you haven't done so, come on, there's still like 45% of people tuning in who aren't subscribed. So come on, look after us over here, Down Under.
For those that are watching on YouTube and not just listening to the audio, here's a magic trick.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to go onto the YouTube to see that. You don't get it on audio only,
and you have to subscribe as well to see it. That's a hidden feature unless you're a subscriber.
Anyway, enough pish talk. Let's get on with it. Celtic 3, Dundee United 0 in the Scottish Cup. So we're the starting lineup of Joe Harding goals, Greg Taylor at left back, Starfelt and Carter Vickers at centre back, Juranovic at right back, midfield of Hatate, McGregor and O'Reilly. And up front, we had Giakoumakis as a striker. And on the wings, we had Forrest and Maeda. Sean, what was your take on the game?
Well, for the lineup, first of all, it was a bit concerning that Jota and Abada were nowhere. But rumor has it they were COVIDed out. And rumor has it Giakoumakis was COVIDed the week before. So it looks like that might be kind of touching the squad. It's good that it's only isolated patches of the squad, though. I'm happy with that. Nothing like the St Mirren outbreak that they had last year. So that's good. The game itself was actually quite a good game, considering the conditions of both the weather and the pitch. I think it was the first thing that the manager highlighted post-match was the conditions, and it was the commentators were going on about it. It didn't make for classic football, but it was actually still a kind of good game, even taking into account for that, mainly because United were really pressing high and that was giving us a bit of space. I think they were actually hoping the conditions would do some of their defending for them, and it did to an extent.
On that, Sean, I actually thought they were trying to grab the early goal so then they could just park the bus because of the conditions.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of times where we looked like we had space to counter, like we had numbers, like we were literally outnumbering them on the halfway line, and then like the ball would get stuck under Forrest's feet or Giakoumakis' feet and they would get back, It was kind of a bit of a leveler. There was quite a lot of events in the game to talk about, but yeah, I thought that, I don't know, a lot of people were shouting McGregor for man of the match, and I thought, based on the first half, yeah, but I would have probably given it to Giakoumakis overall. I thought Maeda was really good as well. I thought he did a powder running. Some weird people were putting Juranovic and Taylor up for man of the match, and I thought the defence did a good job overall. Dundee United had one shot in the whole game. It was off target in Tannadice, but it was on target in Dens Park. So I don't know if that counts as on target or not. But yeah, other than that, that was literally the only shot they had. One that was like 20 yards over the bar. So, I mean, that's impressive stat, if nothing else, right?
It's pretty feral. You know what's good to see though? For once, we had majority possession, 61%, and we didn't commit the most fouls. Like they had 39%, but there was 12 fouls. So that was something that I wanted to point out because all season, because we pressed so hard, we're always the team committing more fouls than the opponent. So that was actually a pleasant surprise considering a certain referee in charge of the game, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But John, before we get into the ref, let's go for your thoughts on the starting lineup, the game overall, and any star performers.
Well, firstly, do we have to talk about Beaton? Jesus Christ. Anyway, my thoughts on
We
the...
kind of have to because it's a big
yeah, we do. Jesus. My thoughts on the game were, look, I think at times it was just an absolute joy to watch, which it always is, I guess. But we were playing some fantastic football, I thought, especially the first 20 minutes, passing the ball about really well. I don't really. It's a bit of an old term, but that old ticky-tacky stuff. I thought we were really doing well, and just quick passing, one touches and stuff. And yeah, like I say, and then there was times when our passing was very poor, and I think that probably is the pitch. I think the only thing to say about the pitch for me is it's like is it a catch-22 or like a? You either have places up in like north of Scotland, but you have cities in Scotland where the pitches are going to be worse quality because the teams don't have as much money to maintain it and stuff, or you get teams like Hamilton and Livingston where you get plastic pitches. So what would we prefer? Do we prefer the, I don't know, I hate the word, quagmire pitches, or do we want the plastic horrible ones? I think I
call them goat tracks, John. It was a Tannadice goat track. And I'm like, let's be honest, to your point there, I agree with you. Like, for me, they say the pitch is a leveler. Both teams have got to play on it. So at the end of the day, it was rough. It was a goat track. There was a lot of players bobbling the ball. Couldn't really play one-touch football. But at the same time, I'd rather see that, what we saw in the weekend, than go and play on a plastic pitch.
I think I probably sway to that side as well. It reminded me, I don't know if this is a term in Australia or in Scotland, but in England at least, we used to call like our local parks recs because it was the recreational park, and there was one right next to the train station that we used to call the train wreck because it was honestly the worst park you could ever possibly go to. It was just pretty much Tannadice, right? So with dead funny
works on two levels.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that English wit. Yeah. So yeah, like I just reminded me of that, and it's like just. Yeah, schoolboy pitches, to be honest. But anyway, look, that aside, you're right. It's a leveler. Everyone's got to play on the same pitch and stuff.
Do you know how to fix the pitch? They did it with Motherwell, right? Motherwell's pitch used to be absolute notorious totty field. And then...
No, go on.
And they gave them a fine of like £400,000 or whatever it was at the end of the season. When your pitch is out of order, here's a fine, sort it out. So they then invested more money in it, and now it's one of the best pitches.
Yeah, that's right. Look, maybe that is just... the SFA needs to demand better standards. Then maybe it's just from all of its professional teams. Like,
Sorry,
finding
John,
individuals.
That's not happen though. Because
no, it's not. Is it?
They're not going to demand higher standards from the clubs on that regard. The SFA, because they're not demanding higher standards from the referees and from people who are running the clubs. Like you look at certain teams that are constantly doing share offers and stuff like that to write off debt. So. If they're not going to knuckle down on that side of it, how can you then turn around and go to the team saying, oh, here's a fine for $250,000. Now go fix your stadium, which is going to cost you another $250,000. So that's $500,000 you're in the shit.
Yeah.
When the TV money, you win the league, you get like £1 million. Like, how can you do that?
Well, I'm sorry, I've just pulled up the Motherwell story, and it was a £50,000 fine, and so they spent £350,000 fixing it. That's what the number was.
But do you know, like, is it fair to really single out? Maybe it's a case of in Scottish football, you have to let your pitch get to such a detrimental level, and then you get told to fix it. Like, and that's just, I don't think that's good enough, is it?
We saw it with Rangers last year. How bad was their pitch?
There's been
Around
times when
Christmas.
ours has not been great as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Like it's, I think it's just Scotland, to be honest. I think it's wet, and when you don't get enough sun and stuff, and it's just, I think that it's a hard thing to demand better from.
John,
to be
it's
honest.
not just Scotland. I'm going to say it for a second because we've got stadiums over here. There was a period there. I'm trying to remember which stadium it was. One of the old A-League ones over here, where because it's a summer league over here, we have the opposite problem. So what they do
Yeah,
is they
dry
put
and
sand
horrible.
down and then they'd spray paint it green, so it looked like grass.
Jesus.
I think that was either in the old NSL or at the start of the A-League. It was one of them. I know they did that at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne when it first opened as well for the AFL. Chuck sand on
Right.
top. So the car park under the stadium, then about 2 meters of turf and of dirt, and then there's the turf. And the grass wouldn't grow because I was working there part-time when it happened. So they're putting sand and then spray painting it green. So what would I rather? That situation here, plastic pitches, or what's currently happening in Scotland? There you go.
When I was on Celtic Park a few years ago, God, when was it? 2000 and I don't know, 4, something like that. And I was on at half time, and it actually looks, I mean, it was obviously before we refurbished it, but it actually looks a lot worse on the pitch than it does from the stands. Like when I was on there, I was like, I looked down, I was like, oh my God, there's actually not a lot of grass here. Like this is really just soil. And fair enough, they had it like perfectly flat and shit, so that like it did have a decent enough bounce and run of the ball, but like it really was worse at ground level than it was from the stands, like noticeably. Like I did notice it.
It's just not good enough, is it? When it's like that, you see professional pitches in that bad state.
Mm-hmm.
I think like the fan base in Scotland should, I don't know, not just demand better, but like expect better. And if you're right, if there's like weight fixes, then I imagine places elsewhere in Europe have similar problems in the same sort of latitude as Scotland, and they don't have manky pitches like that. But
Jared, I've got a question to make for you here. If you're a club like Ross County, for instance, just picking on them because we're playing them soon and they're way up north where the weather can be more hit and miss sort of thing, right? If you've got a club like that or Inverness or whatever, just random clubs, and they get a fine for like 50,000 fine and then are told to spend 250,000 upgrading their pitch. To a regional club like that, 250,000 is how many players over a season? If you're paying someone $1,000 a week, there's 5 players
for a year.
So if you got to look at it and go, okay, are they going to invest that money in 5 first-team players, or are they going to invest it in their pitch so that they can have bring in a better quality of player in the future? I understand both sides of the argument.
Just thinking out loud here, and none of us are going to fix anything, right? But why could we not do like it? Because look, it's an association, right? The SFA, so everyone has to chip in, and it's membership money all goes in and stuff. Why can't there just be a grant system when there's a eligibility where your pitch gets into such a state? There's a maintenance grant that clubs apply for, and then that
they don't use like
pitch.
Lottery funding or something. Is that not a thing you can use that for?
Oh Jesus, I don't know anything. Like
because the Huns used lottery funding for their training center. Like that's why they couldn't mortgage it when they were broke, was because it's 50% or protected or something by lottery. Yeah, so they didn't have full ownership of it in order to be able to do that. But the thing about Motherwell, when you're talking, Jared, about do you invest that money? Well, Motherwell invested that in 2010, and their pitch is still pretty good now. Whereas if they've been eating a £50,000 fine every year for the last 12 years, then that's 600,000. So you could argue they've saved money by doing that.
Yeah,
there you go. That's it.
Anyway, we'll leave that bit of the discussion to the groundskeepers and the horticulture and all that sort of stuff who listen in later in the week. They can come in the comments and let us know. We'll jump back to the game. So I want to just touch on a couple of players here, but before we do, Maeda's goal that was wiped off. Sean,
God.
you looked that up for
Yep.
us. You got the definition and the rules and all that for us, which was great. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've got that in front of you ready to go, but
I
the
wasn't
rules
entirely.
changed.
Yeah, but I wasn't entirely clear on the rule change myself, before, as the goal was happening. And to be honest, in the first like two run throughs of it, I couldn't even, like, the first two run throughs, I literally didn't even see the handball. I assumed it was an offside, so I was kind of waiting for the next replay that was going to show the offside, and I was going to give the linesman crap. But then it comes up, oh no, there's a handball, and apparently the referee signaled handball, and the rule says, if an attacking player's accidental handball immediately precedes another player scoring, the goal will now be awarded, when last season it was likely to have been ruled out. However, a player will still be penalised if he commits an accidental handball immediately before scoring himself. So the only way that goal can be disallowed, the only explanation for that goal being disallowed as a handball is John Beaton thinks it's a deliberate handball, which Giakoumakis is a fucking Harlem Globetrotter if that's a deliberate handball. And the only plausible explanation after that is that John Beaton just doesn't know the rules.
That just can't. I don't know. Look, I think John Beaton's one of the worst refs in the game, right? But I think most Celtic fans do as well, if not the wider community. But all the refs every year, when the rules, they like, just every year they have to get like seminars and training about the updated rules every year. That's all of the refs at the top level. So there's no way that discussion did not happen if that's a new rule that happened last year. Here are the new handball rules, guys. Go fucking memorize them.
That's the case, John. There's three options here. Either one, he's a cheat. Two, he's incompetent at his job. Or three, there's bookies involved. They're the only three
Jared.
options I can put there that would give you a logical reason for that. Like, there's no other reason. I'm not bringing in that he's a Rangers season ticket holder. I'm leaving that whole side of it out. I don't want that tinfoil hat going on here. Those are the three things that in this sort of situation you've seen over the years in football. Those are your three things. Either incompetent, he's a cheat, or there's some dodgy shit going on with bookies.
I'll give you an option that's in between 1 and 2 there, which was that he went to the training seminar and instead of paying attention, he was busy on his phone posting on follow.
Yeah.
I thought he was too busy adjusting his sash.
Because and there's also things like where you can, like, you're so used to doing one thing some way for so long that you forget. But that previous interpretation was only in place for 2 years, so I'm not even going to give him that.
I have to be honest, right? And I think it's purely he's deeply, deeply incompetent, right? And I think I think that's as far as it goes, me personally. But I'm done with the handball rule changing. I'm just sick of it, to be honest. I wish it just stuck to something. It used to kind of make sense. Like, I was all in for it when it was like what do they call it? Biomechanics and stuff. Like, it has to be a deliberate act of putting your hand out in a way that's unnatural and all that stuff, because, you know, if you're extending your foot out, your hand might have to go to the back of you and stuff, and that's all normal stuff, right? So here's your hand. How's that a foul? Yeah, how are you supposed to punish that person doing that? They've not committed a foul against the game, right? But now it seems to be like the rule is, if it hits anybody's hand, it's a foul. And it's, if you're an attacking player, it goes against you. Well, no, we've just said it's not that. I don't know. Like, it's the whole rule is just confusing for me.
There's even more shades of grey there, John, because the other thing they're saying is, like, was his hand away from his body? That's something to look at. Was it an unnatural position? That's something to look at. There's a whole range of things. Like, what we need is what we had back in the good old days of the 90s and the early 2000s, where you had rules, and those rules would be locked in for like a 5-year window. There'd be less mucking around with it. And us fans that get used to it, the players that get used to it, the refs that get used to it. And then, okay, after we've had a good look at it for 3-4 years, after 5 years, make the decision, what are we going to do after that? Because to me, that's the only logical thing. Chopping and changing things year on year, it causes these sort of water cooler conversations to pop up all the time. And, like, it's given us something to talk about, which is great. But at the same time, from that perspective, but at the same time, if this was a close game, and it was the last game of the season, we've got to win just to guarantee the league. And this happens, and it ends up as a 0-0 draw, or it ends up as a draw instead of us winning because a goal is incorrectly chalked off. Like, because the ref doesn't know what he's doing. It's ridiculous. Like, give us some consistency.
I think so. I can see some logic behind the rules consistently changing. I'm playing devil's advocate here, where they're trying to remove any subjectivity from a ref's decision, right? If the rule is it's a deliberate handball, well, then that opens an avenue with have they deliberately done it? And then it was all like the biomechanics, and not all these people are, I don't know, sports scientists. So removing that subjectivity, and I understand what they're doing. But I mean, like, even in the game done against United and stuff, we clearly saw. I can't remember who it was before, but when Rogic just belted it against whoever it was, the United player, and it hit his arm, right? Well, the rules currently, the way that I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, is if it hits your hand in the box, it's a penalty. That's it. It doesn't matter if you mean it. It doesn't matter if it's within your silhouette. It doesn't matter anything. It's just a handball.
It's not the rules now. Because remember, there was the one against Dundee where Jota headed it onto his own hand, and we didn't concede the penalty, and that was the correct decision. Because if it comes off one part of your body and then hits the hand, that doesn't count as a handball.
But if the attacking
so that's to do with where the hand is. It's natural silhouette. So if your hand's at your side and your silhouette, and somebody rattles it off your hand, then that's not a foul, not a handball.
So we're still saying, so the rules currently still are, if it's a natural silhouette, as in standing upright and no hands extension, then right,
and they also take into account the distance the ball travels as well. So like if it's like 1 meter away, they're less likely to give it than if it's 10 meters away.
Mental that I've watched the game for 20 years, and I still don't really understand what the handball rule is now.
You can't fly like Astro Boy because that's unnatural. You can't, pretend you're Superman. That's unnatural unless you're a goalkeeper. The rest of the time, as long as it's natural, it's play on.
Yeah, I'll do the rest of the podcast with my hand in an unnatural position.
Yeah, exactly. And that's within your silhouette. I don't know. Like, what about the I'm just thinking out loud here, but what, how the players are now sticking their hands behind their back? What if it ricochets and hit them on the hand? Well, that's within their silhouette, but it's an unnatural position. Does that?
That's a fair point. Yeah, because it's very unnatural to have your hands stuck behind your back. Yeah.
But especially when you're defending like that, you're trying to make yourself at least bigger. I know you're not allowed to use your arms and stuff, your hands, but you're trying to make yourself as big as possible.
So basically, if you take a shot and it ricochets, say if you're the attacker, John, you take a shot, it ricochets off Sean's knee into my hands that are behind my back.
Yeah,
that's unnatural. That should be a penalty.
But it's in the natural silhouette.
But it's natural because I tucked them in so that it's not a penalty. So again, grey area is ridiculous.
And then you put bloody beaten in the mix.
I don't know if it was the official rule or not, but when I was a kid, the rule was if it hits your hand, elbow to hand, it's a handball, and elbow to shoulder is not. And that was it.
Yeah.
If it hits your hand, there's
even more in the comments here. There's nothing wrong with the rule. It's the application of the rule. Brother John got it wrong.
Oh, no question. We all know he got it wrong.
Mr. Moorcock.
But yeah, yeah, man. Look, do you know who started this? Thierry Henry. This all started with Thierry Henry and that goal against Ireland. That was when it started. That VAR. That's why VAR came in as well. Actually, no. VAR came in because of that Frank Lampard one against Germany. Remember that? When it came off the crossbar and was over the line. That was nobody wanted VAR before that. Or sorry, goal line technology.
Goal line technology came in. Yeah. Which it grew into VAR, but yeah. And we're still deciding whether VAR is good for Scotland. Let's not get into VAR. Let's not get into the long conversation.
Just while we're on beaten, I've seen a video thing on VAR on the training that the Scottish refs are getting on it at the moment. Right? I saw that a couple of weeks back. And the guy giving the interview talking about what they're looking for and what they're doing was beaten.
He was training them?
That's all I have to say on that front. If he's the guy who's the senior VAR person at the Scottish Referees Association at the moment, who's got the most training, and is then sitting in on everyone else's training, and that's the guy making this mistake in our game, can you really see the people he's training and appointing as VAR, as like VAR officials, overruling his bad calls?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that because he's like he does it for UEFA? Is that why? So
Yeah,
he's
because
like,
you've got the UEFA and FIFA
so because he's done a
badges
couple of
on it. So
games.
yeah,
That's like me. I can train athletes for the Olympics because I ran down to the shops and back. Do you know what I
that's
mean?
like Sean. I'm training someone on how to do the Daytona 500 because I've ridden a motorbike before. Yeah,
Yeah.
no sense.
It's a
Yeah,
laugh. What a laugh.
yeah.
Good. Look, I understand that he's a mad Bluenose and stuff, but I think at least in his reffing capacity, I'm only willing to go as far as say he's the most incompetent referee in the game, and I don't think he should be reffing Premiership games at all.
I mean,
Anymore.
that's a
That's a big
bold
call.
statement to say he's the most incompetent because there's a lot.
Oh
of
no,
competition.
yeah, no, I think he's the most incompetent.
I'm thinking
Nah,
of
I
3 or 4.
fully believe that.
I can think of a couple that I would put below him or above him, depending on
wow.
All right,
what way
Sean.
you
On
put
the
it.
count of
which way you
three,
do?
on the count of
Uh,
3, we'll say what you're thinking. All right, and I'll say mine. Who I'm thinking. 1, 2, 3. Kevin
Dallas.
Clancy.
Ah,
Oh, yeah.
so say Dallas
There you
and Ewan Robertson was the other one that came to mind.
I was thinking current ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so
there you
back
go.
to
There's
the
a
game
couple.
quickly.
Sorry, I
Sean.
meant Dallas Jr. What's his name?
Okay.
That son of Dallas. I don't know his name.
Yeah.
Got ya.
Anyway, Damien.
Rio Hatate.
Rio Hatate, yeah. I was keeping a close eye on him because we obviously know he's had a big dip in form after collecting a lot of champagne in his first few games. So I was paying close attention to him, and I actually thought he was having a decent game, 6 or 7 out of 10. And I felt like somebody's had a word with him and said, just keep it simple. And it looked like he was doing that. He wasn't trying to do the defense splitting passes or anything like that, but he was just doing this simple sideways passes, turning his men. Don't try and do these. And look, in a couple of weeks ago, he was doing these like half volleys across the length of the pitch and landing on players' feet. And that's gone out his game in recent weeks. But he went back to basics, and I thought he was going well. And I was disappointed to see him go off at halftime, but also I can understand. I thought he was slightly, I don't want to say he's lucky to stay on, but this is sort of one where if he'd been given that red card, you're not winning the appeal because he's got straight leg, he's got studs up. The only thing that redeems him from that is that he's not going at the man, he's going at the ball, and the man's like beside the ball. So it's like he catches the player's foot who the foot's falling through from the kick, and he catches that foot. So he's not directly tackling the player, and that's the only thing that I'll say redeems him from that may not have been a red card, because otherwise it was a pretty bad tackle.
Yeah, and the thing for me with Hatate is I think Ange's kind of trying to nurse him, manage him as best possible because played a full season in Japan, moved halfway across the world. The adrenaline in the first couple of weeks is kicking ass. That's why he's played so well. And then he looks like he's had that dip where he's like, okay, I'm here, I'm settling in, but I'm tired. And the way he plays, it's just so high energy. Like he presses hard, he's back defensing, helping defense. He's just up and down the pitch the whole time. Where if he gets subbed off, if he goes to the old Rogic role of 60-minute mark, sub him off, and then the next game comes on for the last 30 minutes for the rest of the season, if that's what it's got to be to get him through to the end of the season so he doesn't get injured and he can still make an impact, I'm happy to live with that because it's a squad game for us now. We've got depth. We can actually rotate. So I didn't mind him coming off at halftime either.
I mean, I personally thought it was a strange one. The only reason why at the time I thought that he might be coming off is because it was turned into a bit more of a physical game after like 20, 25 minutes. And I don't think he was really winning those physicalities. I think that high energy stuff you're talking about, Jared, I've been watching J League recently, and I can see why we've gone away and bought all these players because it's pretty. Liam's right; it's a really good standard and stuff. Like anyway, the comparison to Scottish League is pretty good, but they all seem to be playing really high intensity. So yeah, I think Hatate's probably been told that just to chill out and simplify his game first, settle in, and then go forward. But still a good player, and I think when Roger came on, I think it was the right move. It just seemed to be the right move.
Yeah, Rogic's been on good form. So, well, he was in the Livingston game, I should say, not necessarily before that. So he'll probably be disappointed he was actually out the team in the first place. But it's a squad game, so 45 minutes.
Do you know
Yeah.
someone? It's not on the run sheet, but I think we should probably. I don't know if you guys felt the same. Probably mention it. I had reservations, definitely out of ignorance and probably snobbery, with O'Reilly coming from MK Dons, thinking, like even when it's players that I'm not aware of, I'm like, oh well, give him a chance and everything. But MK Dons, someone who's not even playing at MK Dons, not going to get a game. What's he going to be like? I think he's been brilliant since he's been playing here. Like, I'm not saying he's been the most consistent, but I think it was really good. I think it was good in the United game last night, whenever it was, the night before. Yeah, I think he's a really good asset, and I think he works quite well with Hatate when they're both firing on full cylinders.
He got a call up to the Denmark under-21 team.
Yeah, we're gonna go through. I'll put that on for the run sheet later on for the call ups. But
Oh.
no, definitely, yeah, it's good to see him get a call up, and it was kind of
Is
like
he
he did the
Danish?
old time. His mum is.
Yeah, one of his parents, and the other one's
mum.
Norwegian. So he's.
Yeah.
But he said that he wants to play for Denmark.
He's Danish, Norwegian, and
English.
English.
O'Reilly, English, and some sort of
And
Irish as well.
Yeah, an Irish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, he's collecting passports. There you go.
Yeah,
Hey.
bit like me. Yeah,
He's
But yeah,
been
he's,
to been to Dublin Airport, so he's eligible to play for Ireland.
yeah.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah. Went into a pub and had a Guinness before he's eligible for Ireland. That's how it works, isn't it?
Jack Charlton's
Yeah.
on the phone.
I watched a doco on him the other day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on Jack Charlton and his time in Ireland. It was good. It was Shane, one of our regular listeners. He put me onto it. I put a thing out on Twitter about it. He told me about it. I watched it. Good one. If you haven't seen it,
What format's it on?
I think it's on Stan or something like that.
Okay.
I'll check and let you know. But yeah, anyway, I'll put on the run sheet James Forrest now. I'm putting him there because he's had a lot of injury problems, as we all know. But the last couple of games, we're not necessarily seeing the James Forrest of old, okay? But I think he's borderline right on that edge of turning that corner and, exploding at his last 8 games of the season. Like, he's been doing well. He grabbed his leg at one point, but it looks like it must have been a cramp or something like that. But for me, I'm thinking him and his pace and everything like that, it's great. However, it was funny to see him get out sprinted at one point during the game by that Spoiler bloke from Dundee United. But yeah, I think overall, the amount of people writing him off and giving Forrest all sorts of pelters, I'll do the James Forrest Appreciation Society right here and say it's good to see him back, and long may it continue that he stays fit and can contribute. But when he did come off Karamoko into that spot,
yeah,
happy days. It's a nice 1-2 punch there, considering we've still got a Barter to come back as well.
The main thing I take from Karamoko getting a game is that maybe he's going to sign a contract, because Postecoglou said repeatedly that he only works with players that want to be here. So he's working with Karamoko. I get that it was
see you later, Bendog.
Yeah, so for him and Mikey, it was the reward for playing well in that game against Partick Thistle in the Glasgow Cup. But still, like, Postecoglou has been very clear. If you want to be here, I'll work with you, and he's working with him. So that's a positive sign.
I hope he signs. He is a good talent, and we can all see that. And to be honest, and look, as much as I think Giakoumakis is on fire just now, and thank God I was wrong about that. I'm a bit, I don't know about everyone else, but he kind of robbed Cara from his first goal. I think he did. I think that was going in if he didn't touch it. But
no,
I think
it was. I think it was hitting the post.
You reckon? Who knows? Yeah, exactly. Who knows? Yeah.
Anyway, who cares?
Good that he got to come on and get a game. But on Forest as well. The only look, I'm with you, Jared. I think the guy gets too many pelters, which is really, really unfair. I think the guy's great. I think I've seen some great football watching Forest and some brilliant goals and stuff. I did notice on that cramp thing, I think he said, I sort of see him mouthing the words, he was like, "Oh, Mahami." And I reckon that guy is one big shift away from just being out for months. I still think he's on the edge still. So, yeah. I really hope he's not. I hope he's sort of slowly progressed in, but I think we might consistently see him getting pulled off at like the 70-minute mark. 65. I think that might just manage his game time.
Who's getting pulled off?
Forrest. Too slow there.
Had to, John. Had to. But anyway, we'll leave the last bit of the Dundee United game there, unless you got anything else you want to add, Sean, quickly. Otherwise, we'll go on to the Scottish Cup semi-final draw that happened afterwards. Love it. Glasgow Derby in one semi-final, Edinburgh Derby in the other. What was your thoughts when you saw the draw, Sean?
My first thought was that whoever the chief executive is at Premier Sports will be wanking themselves blind over that one. 2 derbies to show on their channel. Apparently that's the first time that's ever happened, that those 4 teams have been in the semi-final together. So not just that they were drawn in derbies, but as in they've literally never had that combination before. So I was listening to it, like I got my VPN on so I could listen to it. Celtic first out the hat, and I was like, oh, come on. And I typed out my phone already to send to my dad. We've got Sevco, and I typed it out, and I was like, and then since it goes Rangers, I'm like, yes. So I was like,
wanted to,
yeah, I was definitely hoping for it. So we've got them 3 times in a month or 3 times in 5 weeks, depending on the post-split scheduling. Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to having them on that big pitch, and it's going to be a 50-50 crowd. It's going to be a good game, I think.
Oh, they can't do the whole ticket allocation bollocks. Yes.
Well, we were first out the hat, so we're the home team technically. So can we say, no, you're not getting any tickets?
You can have 900 tickets. There you go. Happy.
Yeah.
Now, the thing for me is why I wanted them in the semi is like, okay, let's look at it this way. We've won the League Cup already, so there's a trophy in the bank. We win the league, that's great. The last thing you'd want to do is meet them in the final, and if they were to somehow beat us and stop a treble, then what would happen? Like, that'd give them bragging rights even though they lost the league, right? So for me, I'd rather knock them out now. If they knock us out, who cares? We can go on and win the league. It's done. But if we knock them out and then still win the league, then we're playing at a treble here. So that's why I was thinking that.
Chance that, but
yeah.
No, like if you had like, if a magic genie came along and he was like, you've got 3 wishes, and then once he'd given Liam his hair back and sorted out John's penis, he had 1 more wish, and he said you have to pick one of these 3. One of these 3 games. You would it would be the Ibrox game, wouldn't it? You'd take that. Even above the Celtic Park game, because if you go 6 points, then the psychological damage is much more important than having that later one, And in the cup, again, we want to win it all, but like if you, again, some pact with the devil and you have to sacrifice one for the others, the cup's going to be the one you sacrifice. And we're not going to feel that way on the day. We're definitely not. We're going to be baying for blood. We're going to be well up for it. But like the most important one is the league, but this cup is going to stand alone as a big game, and we're going to be buzzing for it. It's going to be a spectacle. Yeah.
Speaking of spectacles, Sydney Super Cup latest. CD, you be there. Woohoo, yes. Go us. We got our tickets. Happy days. So, the latest that pretty much everyone would know by now is it's 3-game tournament. So I think they're expecting both us and Rangers to beat the 2 local teams, because you've got Rangers versus Western Sydney on the 16th, us versus the Smurfs on the 17th. Hang on, I'm looking at the wrong month, but yeah. I got the dates right anyway. There you go.
Yeah.
And then on the Sunday, we're playing against Rangers. So it'll be an interesting one. Now, there was an article in the Sydney Morning Herald that went out by Vince Rigari, who's been on a few podcasts and stuff, talking about speaking to organisers and a few things. And there's going to have to be a lot of background work done off the pitch to make sure shit doesn't kick off. because one of the main pubs for the Rangers Supporters Club in Sydney is near Circular Quay and Central Station in Sydney. And Sydney City CFC is also around the corner from the station nearby. So the issue is to get out to a core stadium. If you have a match ticket for any event there, it usually means you've got free train from Central out to there. So if you're going to have everyone for a 7:30, 8 o'clock kickoff in the boozer all day, having a sing-song, getting absolutely plied up on alcohol, to then use those same free trains to get out to the stadium together, it's a recipe for disaster.
Drinking in the stadium too.
And then you can booze on the stadium even more. So, and then after the game, to get home, it's the same deal. So then you all got to go walk the 500 meters or whatever from the stadium across to the train station, and then do the same thing again to get out of there. That's where the issues are going to be, Maureen. Once you get to the stadium and everyone's in their seats, I don't think it's going to be that bad. But for me, I'm just saying if there's going to be an issue, it's going to be people getting from Central Station on the same trains after getting on the piss all day. That's where the issues are going to be. John, you live in Sydney, so we'll throw to you for your opinion on this. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know for sure that the New South Wales police don't mess about, so they can be quite heavy-handed. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as saying brutal, but having recently seen, because I saw them from my balcony, which was top of my street, all of the COVID protests and how the police dealt with that. I think if anything did kick off, I think it's getting sorted fast. I don't think it's really going to be this. Too many times I've gone to Glasgow Derby and I've ended up at, say, I don't know, Merchant Square or George Square or something like that. And where's the police? Nobody, all gone. Everybody's gone. It was all important, down the Gallagate and stuff, and then it's all everyone's disappeared. So I don't think it's going to be any of that. I think it's going to be pretty well monitored. Or also, there's a big part of me that thinks that maybe they're really underestimating what this rivalry is, to be honest. I think I said to you, Jared, as well in the chat, it's going to be an interesting one because, is it going to be a case of the bitterness that extreme rivalry? Is that a Glasgow Derby thing, or is that a Glasgow culture thing? Are we really going to see? Look, I'd say almost exclusively all of the fans that are going to see this are going to be as immigrants, right? We're going or the ones that, like yourself, Jared, the native borns and stuff. But I don't think none of us have been at least exposed to that or been raised in that sort of bitter environment. So are we really going to see anything? We'll probably see all the rivalry that you expect in the stadium, but I'm not saying we're going to go hugs and kisses and shaking people's hands when we beat them and stuff. But I don't know. I'm going to be really interested. I think it's going to be, well, I hope at least to the extent I hope it's going to be heavily, heavily policed. There'll be lots of police on the train. There'll be lots of police in the Sydney city and stuff. And it's just one day. I don't know.
I've got a quote for you, John, from the article in the Sydney Morning Herald web thing. So John Wright, who's from the Oceanic Rangers supporters in Sydney for their Sydney True Blues mob, he's gone and say he was excited about the prospect, blah, 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 carrying on a bit, saying about drinking and all that sort of stuff. But then he goes, where exactly is it? This isn't going to be like going to watch South and St. George in the NRL. This is going to be touted as a family event, but there will be 10 to 20,000 people going with an intent that they're going to an Old Firm game because that's how it's being marketed. They honestly believe this is a fluffy rivalry.
Has it been marketed that way, though? I've not seen that term.
Like Old Firm?
Yeah.
I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it all across the...
Officially, though?
Yeah. All the
okay.
When they announced it, it was saying Old Firm.
I'm thinking about the poster. It's got like the two on the other halves,
They've changed that now. But then you go down further, and there was a quote from New South Wales Sports Minister Stuart Ayres, right? Where he's saying that a lot of work needs to be done between now and November to ensure the worst aspects of the Old Firm rivalry are not brought to Sydney. He's like, it's not 1984, it's 2022. We love passion, we love noise, but we want a safe environment that people can come to. Because we've got a long runway. The event's in November. We'll do a lot of clear messaging around ticket sales and expectations of fan behavior. And this is where I got the name of the podcast from. So come along, have a great time. Just don't be a dickhead. That's what he's saying there. So I've just changed it to don't be a Bluenose, because us Celtic fans, we're all good. We're sound. So if things are going to kick off, more than likely it's going to be someone wearing blue shirts. But
So just for anyone that's in Scotland or Europe or whatever and doesn't know this information yet, we got our tickets early on pre-release down here through some thing. Anyway, so there was like maybe 10-20% of the tickets were put up, and most of them were co-mingled. There was only 2 very small sections which were designated Celtic and quote-unquote Rangers. So it looks like when it's all released, it's going to be the vast majority of the seating is going to be co-mingled, just no segregation whatsoever. And in an 80,000-seater stadium, that might be okay. I'm going to say it probably won't be. I'm going to say there's probably going to be majority Celtic fans there. I think it's probably a good thing that it'll be majority Celtic fans, because if you get concentrations of Sevco fans together and they start getting up and singing their bigoted songs, then that could be what causes problems more than anything. I was at the Man United Leeds United game here in Perth, 60,000, and there was some isolated incidents during that game that the stewards dealt with. But I think if you're not, I think we're going to be in this roughly in and around the singing section where we're sitting. So there could be a bit more heightened, I don't know what the word is. People could have their fettles up in around that area. But I think if you're all dotted together on a mosaic where people are so spread out that they don't really feel they can stand up and sing together, I don't think it's going to be anything beyond the odd kind of shouting rude words at each other.
So what you'll see, Sean, is just on what you're saying is when you look at the seating chart, there's at each end of the stadium where the end line of the stands are, there's 3 or 4 bays in the middle of each end, which are active support. Then either side of the active support to the corners or end of the corners is allocated Rangers end fans, Celtic end fans. That's where we're sitting. Then there's another middle bay premium on the actual halfway line, and one bay is Celtic premium, and then bay right next to it is Rangers premium.
Yeah, but that's going to be the
history, haven't they?
That's the suits, though. That's not.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So realistically, the rest of the stadium will be all commingled, like you're saying, Sean. Now, the one time I've ran into a Hun at a game, I was over here. I was watching Melbourne Derby, Melbourne City versus Victory in the A-League. Michael O'Halloran is playing for Melbourne City. There's a Melbourne City fan sitting right behind me, abusing one of his own players, wearing a Rangers shirt with his Melbourne City members lanyard on, called him a Fenian and all this sort of stuff and all sorts. So you'll get that in commingled. And to me, straight away I heard that. I'm like, that's the first time I've heard that personally in a football stadium in my life here. So you can imagine getting a whole bunch of them there together. It's going to be an interesting one.
Just add a little bit more extra context for people listening from Scotland. That premium section you're talking about, the seats in there were about $500, which translates to £275. So that is going to be very much people in shirts and ties. That's not going to be.
That's ridiculous.
That's
flogging people.
Yeah, like definitely. Like that's why Celtic are getting paid whatever it is, millions of pounds that they're getting just for coming down. That's they're not silly about it. They'll probably just give all the ticket money to Celtic, Rangers, Sydney, whatever, and then just pocket all the advertising, or the TV money.
I honestly don't know what they want, right? I like the organisers, the whole thing. Like me personally, I think we're all, I don't know, supporters of the whole scheme, right? Because for me, all I want to do is advertise Scottish football. I want to watch Celtic in Australia, and I want to advertise Scottish football. Happens to be the next biggest team, however you cut it, is Sevco. If Aberdeen was the biggest team next, or Hibs, I would prefer to have them in Australia. Happens to be the other side of Glasgow, and that's we're advertising. The reason why they want those two to advertise Scottish football is because they also want that passion, and they want the singing, and they want everything else. What do they expect us just to like leave all the history at the door and just bring along the sing songs and we'll wave the flags and that's rivalry and passion, and then everyone
Like
will
I
just
said,
go
John,
home.
they expect us to all go to the ground and just sit around and have a great big kumbaya session.
Well, they obviously don't expect us to leave the history since they're marketing it with the old firm, which is so they're not expecting that,
So, who's mixing? Who's decided to mix us? That's craziness.
Like, I actually think it might. I'm just saying it might work out in the sense that people that might, the Union Bears or the Green. I'm not going to say Green Brigade because they're in the same breath. That's not fair. But the Union Bears or any of whatever groups of Celtic fans who don't have a name but can be negative when they're come together, if they're spread out, then that could alleviate the problem. But you referred to it earlier, John. That's 1 or 2% of our support, and their support probably 2, 3, 4% for them. Isn't going to be a problem so much when they're dispersed in the stadium, but could be a problem outside the stadium, which is what you tend to see with England fans when they go to away games. And look, there's what you said about you go to the Gallowgate after the game and it's fine. Okay. Well, that's because we know where to go after a game. I've not been to Sydney before. I've literally never been there. I don't know where I'm supposed to go for a drink. There's going to be 10, 20,000 people showing up. Don't know where to go. That's where the real recipe for trouble is. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they need to have fan areas, west of the stadium, Celtic, east is the Huns. I don't know. I think that's where the flashpoints are going to be before, after the game, and then around.
Sean, you know what that sounds like? School teacher logic to me. Because, you get a group of naughty children in one classroom. Okay, you go to this teacher's one, you go to this teacher's room, you go to this teacher's room, split them up.
That's 100%.
My mum was a school teacher growing up, and then you said that, and straight away I'm thinking, school teacher logic. I know what you're about.
You're 100%, mate. Yeah.
Wait, like, when does it stop? I'm not being funny, but everyone's going to be boozing until hopefully early hours and stuff. Because obviously the context there is Sydney only recently let us drink until early hours because it was actually illegal to drink past midnight till recently. But so
lockout laws or something.
Because the lockout laws, blah blah blah. Yeah, exactly, right. So everyone's going to be having a good time into the little hours, right? But are the police just going to be around until, I don't know, the late evening, and they say, right, that's them all done now. They'll all be in their beds, sleeping tight. I just don't think. I think they just think it's like Man United, Man City. That's what I think. That's how they, because all of the comments from the sports minister in New South Wales saying stuff like, "Oh, we used to, organising big events." You've never organised an event like this in your life. This is the biggest. This is the biggest. You don't have a clue. So I have no idea what it's going to be like. Are we going to bring all that bitterness with us? Some of us might. Some of us won't. Is it all? It's all just going to be. I saw. Look, and to be fair, everyone's got the right to be concerned. But I did see a comment from. It might have been in the article, to be honest, about the Rangers dad, and he's saying, like, I want to bring. I live in the inner west, which is a region much like the West End, right? I live in the inner west, and my son's never been and watched Rangers live or whatever it was, and I'd love to be able to take him because that's a big, we all get that, right? That's the passion that we all bring on to the next generation. I totally understand it. That kid might not ever want to watch a football game ever again if there's 50, 100 Celtic fans all screaming at the kid and the dad because they've got a Rangers top on. I just don't think they know what they're doing, to be honest. Or I'm not yet convinced 100%. Or as adults, we'll be fine. But I think, yeah.
Well, either he gets put off or he becomes a militant, because
exactly.
Of that,
yeah, and thinks all these expletives about Celtic fans, which is probably not fair. So,
I'll tell you a story. I spoke to a policeman. I lived in Qatar, if anyone knows, like a few years back, after they'd been awarded the World Cup, when they were starting to get ready for it. And they brought a policeman over from England. So I spoke to him about it, and he was briefing the local police on, traveling football fans. And he was like, okay, so what's your plan for dealing with the England fans when they come over? And the guys were like, oh, it's okay. When they come here, they'll respect our culture and our rules.
The guy just track record of that.
he didn't even have a response. He was just like, is this guy being serious? Like, what's going on here? Like,
they walk around singing "Rule Britannia." Britannia rules the world. You don't rule the world. You take shit over, but no.
Yeah, just no. Yeah.
No,
Wow.
I'll stop there.
And do you know what? It's not even fair to say that it's just Qataris that might think that, because clearly the evidence is that Aussies think the same. They just will come over here and will respect Sydney. And we're right. It's going to be 1 or 2%. It's not going to be everybody. The vast majority is going to turn up, have a good time, and get pissed, and probably end up in a gutter or their beds. Right? That's probably what's going to happen. Right?
Or somebody else's bed.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the best night. But it goes without saying there is going to be some level of, and that's not fair on Sydney siders, and that's not fair on just advertising Scottish football. We want the best. We want to be able to advertise this, because then we get better Australian players. We probably get better merchandising. We get all that stuff, and all the other stuff. It doesn't matter. We're going into just now, but I hope because there's probably going to be trouble, right? But when it does happen, I want it to be quiet down alleyways. I want the police to clear it up and disappear, and I want no journos.
You know what I don't want it to be, John? I'll go back. When I was a teenager, in the town I grew up in, we had a nightclub above a pub and a bank and stuff like that, right? Really weird little dingy joint. But I get to 2 a.m. and the place would shut. And everyone will walk out on the street and there's like 5 cabs around.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, well, I'm drunk. What else is there to do? Let's punch on. And that's what I'm worried it's going to be like, because with the lockout laws and everyone's in the same area, and it's like, what's there to do now? Then some idiots are going to try and kick off. And then that's the last thing. We're going to need to be tarred with that brush, and then have football hooligans on the front.
Exactly.
And all that stuff. Like, that's the bad side of it. But at the moment, I'm half expecting stuff like that to happen, because of the simple fact that, as I said, we're all going to be drinking in a similar area. It's all the same train line. There's just a whole bunch of different things that it's not going to take a lot of a spark to light that match.
Yeah. See if you have the fan zones, though, right? And you see, like, okay, you see a group of like 3, 4, 5 fans in the wrong area, the wrong fan zone, you're like, okay, they're lost. But if you have your fan zone and then you see 20 to 40 people leaving the fan zone together at once, if you're the police, you're like, cool, they're going to cause trouble. Let's just huckle them before they start it. Do you know what I mean? Like, having that segregation outside the stadium just allows you to just really easily spot like the difference between someone who's lost or doesn't, or just ignorant, versus 30 people that are going to cause trouble.
They'll have to fence off inside the stadium as well, though, Sean, because what you're saying about if you do fan zones, if you go to that stadium, you can go in the bottom level, and you can just walk a whole lap of the stadium. Nothing stops you there.
There's a lot more security. A lot more security inside the stadium, though.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that.
Definitely.
Somebody's getting through. Yeah.
They could do that. Yeah, they definitely could. It would take a special kind of determination and idiots to do that, but yeah, they could.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave that there. Celtic Down Under will be there. We'll run the gauntlet. We'll have our big ass flag. Come find us. Come say g'day. Happy days.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll push it more at the time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Sure, we'll talk about this heaps more leading up to it. We've got 8 months till it happens. So 8 months till it starts today.
The anticipation.
Yeah. I know. It's going to feel like, 20 years. All right. So international call-ups. We touched on it earlier. Matt O'Reilly's been called up to Denmark's under-21s. Rhea Hatade Daisy called up to the Japan squad. Tom Rogic is to be called up to the Australian squad. Callum McGregor and Greg Taylor called up for the Scotland squad. And then the talk is Karamoko Dembele is a possible call-up for Ivory Coast if he changes his availability and doesn't want to play for England or Scotland. So they're pushing for that. We said we're going to do a league run-in.
I was going to talk about Sidiki Dembele. Who does he play for? He's Ivory Coast, right?
He's Ivory Coast, yeah.
So that might be something to do with that.
Yeah. We'll do our league run-in, talking about the split and everything next week's pod, guys. Because now that we've got the only, 1 game a week sort of thing, we'll be able to fit it in. We just went off on a few tangents about the Super Cup and match rituals and all that early on today. Kind of went down a rabbit hole, so good fun. But, yeah, we've got game on the weekend. What do we got? Is it Ross County, isn't it?
Yep, at home on Saturday, 3 p.m. Scotland, 11
2
p.m.
a.m. for
WA.
us. Brilliant.
2 a.m. for you, yeah.
It was at 11 p.m. for you, Sean. Happy days.
Yeah, I'll stay up for that.
Yeah. So, what are you hoping for from the game? I'm saying this is the game we're going to batter someone. It's at home. Ross County.
I'll be watching out for Regan Charles Cook. I put him in my fantasy team after the last time he played at Celtic Park, whenever that was, 4 or 5 months ago. But yeah, we should now be looking to strongest team on the day kind of thing. Yeah, there's, as you say, there's midweeks are over. There's literally one more midweek between now and the end of the season. That's a post-split one that always is scheduled in, and we'll have no cup games or European games midweek. So if the Huns get through in Europe, which they should do, they'll have a midweek game just before they play us in the cup. So that'll be interesting how that affects them or doesn't. But yeah, I think it's going to be one of those 2-0, 3-0 kind of games. The Ross County one, sorry.
I'm saying it's going to be 2-0 at halftime. We'll end up winning 5-1.
You reckon? Oh.
Yeah. 4 or 5, either 4-1 or 5-1. I don't know why, I just got a feeling.
You've been wanting a big win for a while, hey?
Exactly. I'm just going to keep saying it till it happens. And
then he said,
anyone in Australia who watches this will get this comment. I'm doing a Gus Gould. I'm saying 20 different things. So when it happens, you can eventually turn and say, see, yeah, I told you that.
I told you, yeah. Oh, fingers crossed, hey. Yeah, no, like I seem to agree with Sean here. I think it's going to be a 3-0 win. I think we're playing well, so definitely at home. We've been a bit slack at passing, so I think maybe at times. So I think maybe 3-0 is the extent. But it's a win. It's a win. It's hard to actually gauge where County are playing just now because that middle of the table just now is just, I don't know. I think it's like 7 or 8 teams that are all within a point of each other or on the same points or something.
Yeah, from 4th through to 9th, there's 1 point.
1 point in it. So, yeah. And I think even the Dons are in it by...
How many?
1 point between 4th, which is Hibs. Hibs and Livy are on 37 points. Ross County, Dundee, Motherwell, St Mirren are all on 36.
Jesus.
Yeah, so the split's going to be tough to know when we're going to play anyone because it's so tight there at the moment.
Yeah, your projected form, and yeah, that's really it. I mean, Motherwell haven't won a game since December in the league.
Wow, and they're still sitting in the middle there.
You're right, and they're 1 point off 4th place, and they haven't won a game since December in the league.
That's mental. It's not a good league this year. Yeah.
Well, surely you could argue close.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, entertaining at least. Yeah. So
Aberdeen, they're not getting top 6. Yeah.
Well, they just got to win every game. They got to have absolute blind down, and they seem to be doing not very great just now. So that was a nice way of saying it. But who knows?
So yeah, if they win their three remaining games, they finish on 41. Go into the split on 41. Whereas all those teams are on 37 and 36, so they only need to win 2.
Yeah, it's unlikely, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going down, but they're not. They're probably going to sit at 10th, somewhere around there.
We got a question here. Why will Ross County score? I think that's directed at me.
I think it probably is.
Should we go over the set pieces that we've been conceding? Or?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So, Sean, you've just nailed it there. That's spot on. So we'll leave that at that point there.
Yeah.
Now, we normally go final thoughts and we have one each. I've got 2 things in my head here. So if you guys want to come up with 2, go for it. But
Jesus. Mine's quite long-winded, so I might just stick to the one.
I'll just quickly throw my first one out. Celtic, get a scout over, and we keep getting asked who in the A-League should they be looking at. If we're going to sell a Yeti in the off-season, you could do a lot worse than Nick D'Agostino from Melbourne Victory. Scored 2 goals last night in the Asian Champions League against Vissel Kobe.
He was at Glory.
Was it Glory? He's over here with us now, like with Victory. But yeah, get him looked at. He'd fit Ange's system perfectly.
Mm,
The other
that's a
thing
good
I
point.
wanted to say was Red Star Belgrade. Do the damn job, please. Like, beat the living shit out of Rangers because they suck, and that will in turn make my in-laws happy too because they're mad Red Star fans. So come on, get it done.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sean,
At least
we'll let
in
you do your
disbelief,
final
Uh, and I seen a magic tractor the other day.
yeah.
It was
What?
driving down the. It was driving down the road, and it turned into a field.
Jesus.
thought. All right, John, over to you, mate.
Oh man, I don't really want to follow that, to be honest.
Bad.
Mine's dead depressing and political, and I don't really want it to be. Look, I just wanted to put my 2 cents right into this whole debate. Obviously, I grew up from outside of Scotland, right? So I think I've got a bit of privilege in the sense that I didn't grow up within that sphere. Because I've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of accusations that some of the songs that Celtic fans were singing at Tannadice were bigoted. I don't know if you guys saw this.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, look, I just have to say, right?
I think
For me,
would be the word from what I heard.
exactly. For me, bigotry is a deliberate discrimination of identified group. There is, and I've had this conversation with my Scottish mates as well, where they walk past an Irish pub or a Celtic pub and they so-called hear bigoted and sectarian songs when actually they're hearing Rebs or they're hearing IRA songs. Those two are different for me. I have never once thought that singing those songs has been anti-English or anti-British. They have always been anti-Westminster and anti the British Army, for me anyway, and that was growing up in England. But me personally, I don't like the IRA songs. I think there is a discussion that we should have within Celtic fans where, as much as we can argue between us that they did the right thing and they had to defend Ireland and stuff, we just don't want it. We just don't need that stuff in Celtic Park anymore, or anywhere at the away games as well. And I look, my favorite song is Celtic Symphony, so there's just that one bit that I wish they would change. But so look, that's my 2 cents. I don't think we're singing bigoted songs at all. I don't even think they're discriminatory.
Well,
I think we're just
apart from the one you're talking about that happened.
Yeah, well, look, if we were singing specifically Up to My Knees in English Blood, do you know what I mean? I'd feel quite awkward about that as a Celtic fan. But then I could easily say that that's bigoted and stuff. But there's ambiguity, and I just don't think those type of songs are necessarily as bad as the other side's songs. But we should probably just cut it out altogether. Change the words, sing the same songs, change the words or whatever, and just leave it alone. Because my understanding is it went away for a long time. And it's just back in sort of my lifetime and stuff. So, yeah, cut it out, I guess. But that's just my opinion.
And John has spoken. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If you can, please give us a like on our Facebook page, join our Facebook group, Instagram and Twitter. You can find us at Celtic Down. Please follow our YouTube channel, subscribe to that, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live each week. And subscribe to us via your podcast app as well. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, John. And hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail. Job it.